Okay, so from Unit 5, we have two legislations, Consumer Protection Act as well as Motor Vehicles Act. One common question for both these two legislations are, what are the salient features of this legislation? For Motor Vehicles Act, we have already discussed that whatever other provisions are given there, third-party insurance, no-fault liability, it provides for punishment, all those would be mentioned as features. Same goes for Consumer Protection Act as well. Consumer Protection Act 2019, what are the salient features of this legislation? There is a very common question on this part, and we will be discussing that today. Salient features, Consumer Protection Act 2019. As we know, Consumer Protection Act 2019, it relates to two different types of consumers of goods as well as of services. Maybe you have bought a bike, a fan, or you bought food from outside. In such cases, you become consumer of the goods. If there is something wrong with the food, wrong with this fan, wrong with the bike, you can file a complaint, being a consumer of goods. At the same time, maybe you were a consumer of services. Rather than buying a bike, you decided to hire it for 1 week or 2 weeks because you went somewhere for a holiday. And then there you were not happy with the service which was provided to you. Or you wanted to repair your fan. The person came, repaired it, but again it was not starting. You were not happy there also. Maybe you wanted to dunzo food for your friend, but it never got delivered. In all these three different situations, also you are not satisfied. And you can file a complaint being consumer of services. So there are two different types. One is of goods, another one is of services. In either case, you can file a complaint and your matter will be addressed. So where can you file a complaint?
Ma'am, FIR only in police station, no, ma'am.
Where?
Police station.
Police station. Will you file in police station? We discussed so many other different ways of filing a complaint, filing a case. Where will you approach? For consumer matters, we discussed, right? That if amount is this much, we will do this. If that much, we will do that. Where do you approach? Where can we go? Consumer Protection Act. If our rights are being violated, where can we go?
He will protect the bill, ma'am. Consumer protection bill.
Okay, but
it will
what
be
will
passed by the parliament.
Meaning?
Mediation cell and all. Mediation nomination.
There is mediation.
Yes.
Yeah, mediation.
Yeah,
so if Consumer Commission feels, they can even refer the matter for mediation also. But usually we file a complaint before the commission. Okay, state, district, or Consumer Commission. So let's look at the features then. Salient features for protection that are salient features of this legislation. First of all, it provides holistic protection to consumers. Holistic as in it talks about overall thing, right? Whatever is needed. Is it relating to different advice that we need, different sort of implementations we need? Is it matters relating to addressing of a consumer matter? Is it making the process of filing a complaint easier? Whatever matter it is, it covers every single thing. And in this legislation, which was introduced in 2019, it also includes e-commerce transactions, which are increasing so much. It also talks about setting up of consumer protection councils, which will be primarily focusing on giving advice to the concerned persons, right? Advice on consumer protection, protection of consumer rights. It talks about mediation cell, which will try to settle the matters by way of mediation. It talks about consumer protection authority. All these different bodies are also being set up, and this legislation includes every single aspect of consumer protection. So that is the first feature, that it is like all in all, we don't need any other thing basically. One legislation enough to address all the different issues. Secondly, as I told you here, it is applicable for goods as well as for services. That is also another feature. Whether you are buying goods, you are taking some services, if you are not happy, in either case, you can file a complaint as well. Next, this act expressly includes e-commerce transactions and makes special provisions in respect to the same, because e-commerce is becoming so popular these days. Even during lockdown, it became even more popular. People opted for e-commerce transactions. So in such cases, if you are not happy with those services or goods, it is also included under the legislation. It has comprehensive definition of services. Whatever legislation you talk about, we get some definitions being used. All right, some definitions will be given, and those definitions help us understand a certain concept. Similarly, if we talk about Consumer Protection Act, there as well important words are being defined. One such important word is services. What is service? What all things will be included? That is also made very clear, so that the service providers also are aware that yes, we are under the scope of Consumer Protection. We also need to provide this protection to this certain person. Okay, so this is providing for comprehensive definition of services as well. What all things will be included and not everything we get to know from there. It covers public and private sector suppliers of goods and services, even including government agencies. Mostly it tries to include every single thing that may happen around us, from where we may be not satisfied with the goods, with the services, everything they are trying to include or cover. Then the Act covers public and private sector suppliers of goods and services, including government agencies. Like I told you, it is not specifically restricted to private sector, or it is specifically restricted to one certain type of goods, but no, it includes every single aspect. This Act has introduced the concept of product liability and brings within its scope the product manufacturer, product service provider, and product seller. So it talks about liability of manufacturer, seller, whoever is doing anything with the product, everyone is made liable. There are different classifications on who will be liable, to what extent. That also we need to understand under product liability. But yes, it tries to impose liability on all these persons for any claim of compensation. If you bought something, you are not happy with how it is working, whoever manufactured it, whoever sold it, there are different categories when this product was maybe made, prepared, altered. All these persons can be held liable. This Act provides redressal of consumer grievances in a simple and inexpensive way. Otherwise, if these consumer protection councils were not there, commissions were not there, mediation cells were not there, it would have been very difficult for persons. We would have to approach a regular court, pay high fees to the lawyer, go to the court for every single hearing. It would have been like a time-consuming affair for us. But we don't want to do that, and that is the reason why it provides for a simple and inexpensive way. You can prepare like a complaint only, you can online also file it and your matter will be addressed. It's that simple. You don't even need to visit the district office, state or national body, whatever is concerned. You don't need to visit that. Also online as well, you can file a complaint. This right, e-complaint is also made available just to make the process very smooth, so that we can raise our voice if we are not happy with a certain service or goods. Okay, just like a letter, we can write our matter and we can accordingly address it to the redressal forum or the commission. They will address it. Is it clear?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, what is e-commerce? E-commerce, by addition of e-commerce transaction, Consumer Protection Council.
Yeah, e-commerce what?
You said by the addition of e-commerce transaction, Consumer Protection Councils, mediation cells, etc.
Yeah, I think your voice was not coming properly. Yeah, what is e-commerce?
You said that by addition of e-commerce, the transaction and Consumer Protection Council, mediation, etc. No? What is e-commerce?
E-commerce as in like electronically what we do, right? Maybe you are ordering something online from Amazon. There they cannot say that, okay, it's not service. They are also, even if it's online, they are doing it. Maybe you booked like house cleaning and for other stuff, you booked an appointment in Urban Clubs. That is providing like online support system basically, right? Or for a haircut, you booked them. That is also like online thing, right? Those are also included. Maybe sometimes you will see someone may need a nurse at their home itself. That also, there are some agencies who would provide you contact details and other stuff of nurses, then house help, all those stuff is plumber, electrician, all those things are also included. Those are basically online you are doing simply because it was an online thing. They cannot exclude their liability. They will be similarly liable under this legislation. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. The most important aspect of this act is that it has a set time frame for settlement. If, take for example, a matter is referred for mediation, once mediation cell decides on it, sends a report, the commission cannot keep it pending for like forever. They need to pass an order within 7 days, like yesterday we saw. So this legislation tries to put certain restrictions relating to time so that matters are not pending forever, but it gets settled very quickly, so that parties are also able to get the benefit of having a separate legislation, having a separate body to look after their issues. So it talks about addressing matters as quickly as possible. Then consumer having common interests and grievances can collectively file complaint under class action provided under this act. Maybe there was some issues relating to an airline. Okay, they were not providing good services. Might be they allowed people to book a flight. 3 flights were there. All those 3 flights got cancelled. And they refused to repay or return the amount. Like if a flight gets cancelled, they would return the entire amount, refund the entire amount. But this specific airline, they refused to do it. In that case, what happens? There are bunch of sufferers, bunch of victims, right? People who booked these 3 flights. That means just imagine how many people are there. All those 3 people, all those group of people, rather than filing individual grievances, individual complaints, all of them can collectively file a complaint, which will be like class action. All those are victims of the same matter. So together, the commission will hear the matter so that it can be resolved very quickly. If they were listening to those like 10,000, 20,000 people, it would have been a time consuming affair. Rather than doing that at one go itself, they will hear matters of everyone because it's the same issue that they had faced. Their money was not refunded. So that is another thing. Consumers having common interest and grievances can collectively file complaint under class action provided under this act. Okay, is it clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Then mediation we have discussed yesterday as well. Mediation is an alternative dispute resolution, and mediation cells will be adjacent to the district, state, or national commission. If the commission feels this matter can be settled through mediation, they will refer it for mediation. So mediation is also playing an important role in settling of disputes very quickly, and parties do not need to wait for longer. They can come to a win-win situation where both the parties would sacrifice on some or the other rights and will be able to resolve the dispute as quickly as possible.
Okay.
Then it also talks about consumer protection councils like we discussed yesterday. There are 3 different levels of them: district, state, and national, central. So they will promote the consumer protection and protect rights of consumers. They will basically try to give advice. What can be done? It is an advisory body. What can be done better? How can we protect rights of consumers? Relating to that, they will be giving advices. Okay, so how many times Central Consumer Protection Council should be meeting in a year?
Central means only once, ma'am. It
Only
might be
once?
any time, you can meet any time if it is necessary. But in a year, we have to meet only once.
At least once. Okay, you can meet
Yes,
many times also, no issues, but at least once you should be meeting. What about State Council?
State and district 2 times, ma'am. At least
State
2
and
times they have to.
district. Yes,
Yes.
right. So they should be meeting, and their main aim is to give advice on the promotion and protection of consumer rights which are given under this act. Yes. Next one, it talks about establishment of a regulatory authority also, which is known as Central Consumer Protection Authority. We have this topic included as a separate topic, Central Consumer Protection Authority. So we will be discussing that as well. It is mainly a regulatory authority. It regulates all the rules, regulations, powers, functions given under this act, Consumer Protection Act. It can conduct inquiry, investigation, etc. relating to violation of consumer rights that are given to consumers. Then this act protects consumer against defective and hazardous goods. You bought some goods, those goods were not up to the mark. What was promised in the ad or something, it was not up to the mark. In such cases, you can file a complaint. If it was defective, it looked fine, but then it is not serving the purpose. You bought a fan, it looked nice, but then it is not working. In that case, there is no use of keeping that fan. So it is defective goods, or it may be hazardous goods. It is very dangerous. Okay, something they were selling, but it was not properly covered, not properly sealed, proper instructions were not given. In such cases, also protection will be given to consumers. Deficient and inappropriate services. Services were not proper. You booked an appointment for an electrician from Urban CLAT. Electrician came to fix your AC. He did something for an hour. He did something, but still AC is not working. Then there is no purpose of booking that service, right? It was an inappropriate service. There also you would get protection. Restrictive trade practices and unfair trade practices like hoarding, black marketing, insider trading, monopolies, etc. Basically, these traders also will not be allowed to do any sort of illegal activities. Okay, if they are doing it like unnecessarily, but falsely, they are being like, okay, there is a scarcity of onions. So onion price, we are just increasing it to 150 rupees, 200 rupees per kg. that is not something which is the right thing to do, right? Sometimes they may be like, okay, fine, we are just plan with everyone, just increase the price of a certain thing. Those sort of things also should not be done, because it, in a way or the other, tries to affect rights of consumers. So that again is another feature of this legislation, that it looks into every single issue that a customer might be facing or a consumer may be facing, and it tries to address all of that. It also covers unfair trade practices like food adulteration, overcharging, or short waiting on fixed price items and packaged commodities, etc. So these things also we see very commonly, right? That food adulteration is there. Food, whatever they have mentioned, they just try to adulterate the food. It may be overcharging, like they were charging above the MRP. MRP is maximum retail price. Above that, you should not be charging. If they are charging, does not matter whether it's 2 rupees, 3 rupees, you can file a complaint and matter will also be addressed by the commission. So overcharging is also included. Short waiting, if they mention that for 200 grams, this is the price, but when you bought it, it was actually 150 grams. That means where is this 50 grams missing? There, for short waiting also, complaint may be filed. Sometimes what may happen, right? Some items, when you made it, it was of this weight, but because you are storing it for a few days, its weight may be reduced or increased. So there they will mention also that this was the weight when we had packed this item, but yes, weight may vary a little bit. Those things also will be mentioned in the packet itself if you buy some things like that. Okay. And these matters, if we are facing any issues relating to this, we can address it to the concerned forum, whether it is district, state, national, whatever forum is having jurisdiction, we can address the matter there. Is it clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Next, it also makes provisions against misleading advertisement. Something is said in the ad, but in reality, it's a different thing completely. Those sort of misleading ads also, complaint can be filed against that also, right? So misleading ads also can be included under it. It also imposes liability on person who endorse misleading advertisements, such as brand ambassadors. If they are saying that, okay, this is like a very good product, this is this, this is that, you can even file a complaint against this person that he is trying to manipulate poor people. It is not the correct statement that he is making, right? There is something like Bimal Kesari, something is there, right? That ad itself shows like it's a very good thing. It's a very good thing to eat. But then in reality, it is not. So if there are some misleading ads like that, for that also complaint can be filed. Okay. It also introduces penal liabilities. It is not just like we are studying it under torts, right? Otherwise, it is violation of civil law. Compensation is given to parties. But there may be some situations wherein fine also will be imposed. That means it is penal liability. Criminal liability may also come for certain matters. We have a topic on penalties and liabilities part, so we will discuss that also in some time. But it is having penal provisions also. There are certain provisions which will lead to criminal consequences. That is another feature. After that, this act is considered as a progressive instance of social welfare legislation. This act has forfeited consumer movement in India. It is one of its kind. It pertains to market and seeks redressal of complaints arising out of market interactions. It is thinking about welfare of consumers as a whole. Whatever is needed for their protection, for their welfare, those steps are being taken. Whether it is providing compensation, establishment of different boards, different bodies, everything is done by this legislation itself. Next, this act is consumer oriented and safeguard interest of consumers against unjust and exploitative business practices like selling defective goods, rendering poor services, etc. It is a welfare legislation and it is thinking about welfare of consumers. How can we protect consumers' rights? Accordingly, protection is being given. Matters like defective goods, poor services, etc. are also properly addressed by this body. Okay, is this part clear for features?
Yes, ma'am.